Welcome to Think Tech, raising public awareness about diversity, technology, energy, and globalism. This show is The Arts in Hawaii. I am your host, Donna Blanchard, the very proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater, and we are coming to you from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu on the Think Tech digital series. Today we're going to talk to Tim Savage, who is a filmmaker, and we're going to talk about his work, including his current project, which is Graham Salsbury's Under the Blood Red Sun. If you would like to ask questions during the show, now this is new, get ready, you can tweet us at ThinkTechHi, ThinkTechHI, on Twitter, and I will try to keep an eye on it as well as possible. And we'll get to your questions as long as they're appropriate and entertaining to us. Remember that we broadcast live on the internet every weekday. All of our shows are streamed on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. If you would like links to our live streams or any of our previous broadcasts, go to thinktechhawaii.com. And if you would ever like to join us in our downtown studio, send an email to j@thinktechhawaii.com. Tim Savage, my guest, is the director of Under the Blood Red Sun, which is an independent film based on the award-winning youth novel written by Graham Salsbury. He's also the director of Media for New Hope Oahu and owner of Accelerator Films, a media production company. He has directed television commercials for many of the largest companies in Hawaii, including most Bank of Hawaii spots over the last 10 years. Now here's something, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I have to laugh after reading your the short bio. I generally ask my guests, give me a short bio to read.
Yes.
And some people really cram that information in there. Let me tell you, you left out several films: Driving Home, Cutback, Lemon Tree Billiards House, Goodbye Paradise, and Glacier.
Wow, I'm amazed that you were able to pull up those titles. I'm very impressed.
I'm really adept with IMDb. What can I say? Is there any reason, did you just not feel like bragging about it?
I just thought that we would talk about what was current, and if you wanted to go back, that I'm perfectly happy to talk about any and all of those. They were all memorable and important to me in many ways.
Okay, well, good, because I would like to go there. And some of these you've written, directed, and produced.
That's correct.
Even.
Yeah. Actually, one of them, I have to say, Glacier, was my my debut on this side of the camera. Normally, I'm on the behind the camera. And Glacier was a film done by a friend of mine, Cam Eason, and he asked me to play a part. So I had nothing to do with that other than show up and read my lines.
Well, that's the easy part. Let me tell you, it's the easiest job in film or theater,
well,
so I hear.
No, I have great respect for actors, as I know you do. So
I do. I mean it.
Well, they
when
have
I say
it pretty
I think
good.
It's the easiest job.
I have to agree. But the process of getting the role, that's pretty arduous, pretty horrible.
Yeah.
But once you get the role, as long as you're good, then I guess it is pretty
There's
fun.
the fun, too.
Yeah,
Definitely. So I want to talk about the fun of it, but first let's just cover what's going on right now. You are working on this film based on the novel Under the Blood Red Sun.
Yes.
And where are you in production right now?
We are 15 days into about a 20-day schedule. So that means that we've shot 15 days out of about 20. We left just a few scenes for this upcoming phase that were a little bigger scale, or maybe we didn't have exactly what we needed to be able to film those scenes. So right now in the can, we are probably 80 to 85% shot, and we just have a few more scenes to put to bed, and then we'll have everything shot, and we're actually in editorial right now. So finished phase 1, we're in edit, and we have phase 2 to go, and then we'll do final edit.
And when you talk about 15 days into a 20-day shoot, but those have been spread out over a couple of months, right?
Well, what we did was we knew that there were going to be 2 phases, so the 15 days, although not consecutive, were over a 3-week period. So It was with just a few days off in between, but that was our big major production schedule. The grind, that was really the hard part, because it was day after day after day after day of filming. And then taking a break for the holidays, and then reassembling, getting the gang back together, securing our locations and the sets and the props. And we needed a few things that we weren't able to find for the first part of it. We needed a very specific kind of fishing boat, for instance, that was right for the period. We need to portray a scene that happens either in or around Aloha Tower, which is kind of a big deal, and a ship that was going to be there. So visual effects, physical props, sets, things that we weren't ready to shoot during the first phase, so we held back, and we have those to go in February.
How did you come to the project?
Well, Donna Hankins is the producer of the film, and she really is the person leading the charge on this. We had been looking for material to work on for 10 years now. 10 years ago, she wanted to do something special. She wanted to give Hawaii a voice. She came to Hawaii as a Navy wife. Her husband, really high-ranking naval officer, commander of a nuclear submarine, but she came from Hollywood, and she moved to Hawaii with her husband and her family, and she thought that there should be a local voice here in media, in film. And so we started looking for projects to work on together, and one of the first projects that you mentioned, the Lemon Tree Billiards House, was she was very resourceful. She went to Honolulu Magazine and asked to get the rights to the award-winning short stories that would appear there. That's, what a treasure trove of wonderful material. And out of that, she pulled the ones that interested her the most, and then out of that, she handed the stories over to a few different directors. And I found that one that really resonated with me, and that was Lemon Tree Billiards House. And then we went on to tell that story, and it ended up winning an award at the Honolulu International Film Festival as Best Local Filmmaker Award. And from there, we continued to look for material. Dana found the book, read the book, loved it, and handed it to me 10 years ago. And I read it, fell in love with it also, and then we started doing research on it. We found out, obviously who the author was, had he been approached with any other offers for the rights to do a film on it. We wanted to know more about the book, came to find out that it's required reading for many middle schools across the United States. It's sold 750,000 volumes. They estimate a readership of this book at 1 million, and it's 20 years old, which means now you have generations of families, parents now have read it, and now their kids are reading it. So it seemed like a really wonderful story to tell that actually had the potential of not just breaking even, but maybe actually seeing some success in a distribution of a film like this. Now, that was 10 years ago. So this has been a very, very long process for us to actually bring it to screen, because we tried the different ways, the avenues available to making a film. So 10 years ago, there was really only one way to make a film, and it was Hollywood's way. You needed a lot of money, you needed distribution, you were going to have to put it up on big screens across the United States, and you were literally talking millions of dollars, and it was just a matter of how many millions could you do it for and still make money. And what we found was that there were no studios in Hollywood unfortunately, looking for stories that didn't have a sorcerer or robots or flying or magical spells or some sort of ring and swords. They really weren't looking for any material that that was like ours, which is historical fiction. It's more of an intimate, personal story about our hero, this boy, this 13-year-old Japanese boy, his best friend, who's a 13-year-old Haole boy, and what happened to them and their families at the time of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And it's really it's a story kind of like Stand By Me. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh my
movie,
gosh, I love
right?
that.
A story of friendship, loyalty, courage, overcoming obstacles. In the case of Tomi, our hero, becoming a man in the absence of his father, who's been taken away into an internment camp here. So there's an important story to be told that we don't want people to forget. There's a great story of friendship and courage between these two boys, the conflict of what happens to the family, and then finally the resolution that comes out of it. And so we just knew that it was important for us to keep working and pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding on this piece of material. And like I said, 10 years running, we tried the Hollywood way, got nowhere. We tried to self-fund it and then still produce it sort of like a very small independent Hollywood feature. But even that requires a couple of million, 2-3 million. And we didn't want to get caught in raising money from investors who probably would be friends, family, people that we cared about, and not being able to guarantee that we'd be able to pay them back. That just weighed so heavily on our shoulders that we knew that we were going to be very, very, very careful about doing that. And I should say, in the meantime, finding the right people for the roles, especially the role of Tomi, 13-year-old Japanese boy, was very, very difficult. And throughout this whole process, even as we tried those 2 times to launch this, I didn't feel like we had found Tomi. So there we were, trying to launch this, trying to raise the money, get the resources, but we didn't have the one thing that we absolutely had to have, and that was that actor. I guess it's been about 6 or 8 months ago now, someone popped up on the radar, and a young boy, Punho student, who did a small part in a friend of ours short film called The Fishing Club. And Donna Hankins, the producer of this film, worked as the producer on that film, and she said, "You have to see this boy's work. You have to come in and see the scenes that he filmed." And so I went in and all excited, and we watched the scenes together, and this boy had such an endearing quality about him. And he's a gifted actor. He's been acting and dancing and singing with Punho Productions, with productions up at Diamond Head Theater. So he had some experience doing this. But still, we had a 140-page script. Mm-hmm. And Tomi is on every single page. He's the one character who is in every scene. So it had to be a little more than, well, here's somebody with talent. It had to be somebody that we could rest the entire movie on his lap, and people would care about him and want to see good happen to him, and would cry when he cried and would laugh when he laughed, and in this boy we knew we had found it, Kyler Sakamoto. So he's an 8th grader at Punho. He's 13 years old, exactly as is written in the book. His parents are actually, part of the Japanese community here through the JCC and they care about the story, and they have their family ties to stories that are similar to ours. So it really was a perfect fit with Kyler. So now, having given you all of that background, he's 13, and we had a deadline all of a sudden. All of a sudden, it became critical as to when we were going to start.
Yeah, before he's 20.
That's right.
Thank you so much for telling that story about him. We're going to take a break, and then I want to go right back right back to where we were. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series. We're coming to you from Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu, and we'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Hi, we're back and we're live. I'm Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater, and I'm talking with a film director, filmmaker, Tim Savage. And yeah, I am the proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater, and my office manager, Will Kahele, is in the film.
He is, and he's wonderful.
He is
wonderful.
You know, he's one of those actors, like you're talking about the young man that you cast. Will is one of those actors who you just really want to care about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why we pursued Will. Will was funny. It was not that easy to get in touch with Will, and he has other duties, and he's busy.
He has a boss who's up.
And so, but Will was one of those guys. I started a journal 7 years ago. I started a journal of just every thought that came into my mind about this film. I wrote it down. Will was one of those first page entries. For the role of Charlie, make sure we see Will Kahele.
Oh, that's wonderful.
One of the very first pages in my journal, and yeah, he just is fantastic in the film.
Now, Charlie's not in the novel.
Is
he?
Charlie is the caretaker of the family that lives next door to Tommy. And so he's written into the screenplay to provide kind of a local perspective. You know, what was it like, not just for the Japanese immigrants, not just for the Caucasian immigrants, but what was it like for the people who actually lived here and their families had been here for a while. And so Charlie, his easygoing style, his caring mentality, he's really the uncle to all of the kids in the neighborhood. And while doesn't hang out or play with them, he's always carefully watching, making sure they're okay and making sure that they're staying out of trouble, or if they need anything, he's there for them. So the kids feel really comfortable around him. And I love that character because I really do think that Will brings that sense of you know, what it's like to be local at that time, that tumultuous time in 1941.
Yeah, he has a calming presence. He has a calming presence at Kumukuhua, too.
Isn't he great?
Sorry I made it so difficult for you to film with him.
Well,
that was
he
me.
was worth every bit of anxiety that it took to get him out there. It was worth it.
And it happened to be during, some of the filming was during opening weekend of our show, our Lee Cataluna show, that he
Right,
was also
that he was in.
But that's the life of
Right.
an actor. Things have a tendency to come together at all the right or wrong times,
And,
depending on
we
perspective.
felt very, we felt it was important to support as much as we could, because we were going to come in and kind of be blustery, and then we were going to go away. But those kinds of productions that you put on are ongoing, and they're always going to be there. So we have to make room when it does get busy for all of those projects.
I appreciated that. But let's talk about, speaking of Will, I remember, there's one thing that I want to say. It's funny that you mentioned Stand By Me. I have for a long time been an avid reader of Stephen King, and that was one of my favorite novels ever. And it doesn't have the wizard or the magic, any sort of magic in it. And it's the first time I read one of his books that was just character driven, and how beautiful is that? I'm so glad you're making this film, because this story is so touching and stirring, and it's really difficult material, and it's handled very gracefully. And Graham Salsbury wrote your screenplay also.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And what a wonderful job he did with that. And Will's character, Charlie, building that in, he built it in. You know, Stand By Me was rather short short story, and the film followed it almost verbatim. You couldn't do that with this.
No. The book is a novel. It's much longer than what could have been put into a movie, so we had the difficult job of stripping out anything that didn't forward the story, and even some things that did we couldn't keep. But Donna and my goal through the whole project was to tell the story of the book. That it wasn't something that I necessarily or Dana wanted to put our big fingerprints all over it. We really set out to tell the story of the book because the book is what people love and that what they have loved for all these years. So in going back to Graham, we said, we think it's important that you write the screenplay. Even though he'd never written a screenplay before, we said, we'll be with you the whole way. You know, we'll give you all of our feedback and opinions and suggestions and work with you, but we really think that it's got to be you to turn the novel back into a screenplay. So I'm really, really glad that he accepted that challenge.
How long did that take for him to turn that around?
Not long. He really dove into it and he took it as a responsibility and he approached it like a job. It didn't take him more than a couple of months to really get in there and I think he eventually got a kind of a rhythm. He sort of figured out what needed to come out in order to keep it moving forward. That he came to some kind of rhythm that he knew that exposition kind of had to come out and dialogue had to be pared back, but keep as much of the dialogue as you could, take out the exposition, and then as our job is to tell the story in the film is to expose or reveal information in creative ways that aren't necessarily just through dialogue.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see where you go with it. I'm sorry, the young man who is playing Tommy? Kyler. So that quality that Kyler and Will possess?
Yes.
It's difficult to name. It's a feeling, isn't it?
And it's sort of unlike anything that you would normally be looking for. If, heaven forbid, but Disney, my kids grew up with Disney TV and the kind of the stars and the kids that made it into those shows. I mean, they're bright and sparkly and full of life and always getting, stumbling and getting into trouble, and they're just kind of bigger than life. Mm-hmm. But Tommy's role, the character, is not bigger than life. He's like us. He represents us. And so he's on the quiet side. He's on the reserved side. And so you're not looking for someone that has this enormous charisma that just, that really makes you want to look at them. There's something inward. There's something about who they are as a person, something in their eyes that tells you that, this is a very caring young man who is going through some very troubling, challenging times. And it's because of that more quiet quality, I think, that you really are so endeared to the character and what Kyler brought. So it's difficult to find that sometimes.
Because it's a vulnerability, right? And it's I think there's an honesty, there's an explicit honesty that someone has to have while they're reading lines, while they're lying.
Yeah. What was so funny about Kyler too, and the same thing is true with Kalama Epstein, who plays Billy in our film, and there's a great story about Kalama, but Kyler absolutely nails it when you call action. But the second right up to that, he could just be a 13-year-old, be, playing around and enjoying himself, and he's not in character until the instant you call action. And then from then on, he's spot on.
Wow.
And it's sort of unnerving for a director because you're looking at all of the monitors or you're looking through the camera and you want to see this world, this environment that you've created, and you want to see the whole thing happening all the time. But there are these two boys who are just kind of bouncing off each other right up until the point you call action, and then they're perfectly. I had to learn to be okay with that. As a stage director, I'm sure that there's probably some of that where you want to see your people kind of be the character, and I really had to learn to be okay with, Kyler and Kalama and Mina, our little one, Tomi's little sister. I had to be okay with just letting them be kids on the set whenever they didn't have to be their character.
And Dan Secchi is your grandpa?
Grandpa.
He's on our board.
Dan, I call Dan the rock of the story. Dan is in, I think, the next largest number of scenes other than Tomi, and so Dan is really someone that Tomi, the character, plays off of quite often, and so Dan was always the ultimate actor. He just always came completely prepared to play the scene. He was always the foundational part of the scene. Sometimes he didn't even have any lines, but he was just so critical in setting the tenor of the scene and then nailing his part time after time after time. And just such a joy. Dan was, again, one of those names that are on the first pages of my journal. Grandpa, see Dan Secchi.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And you've worked, Dan was in another one of your films, wasn't he?
Dan was, he played a small role in Lemon Tree Billiards House.
Oh.
And so, yeah, we had worked together before, and just a great actor. Yeah, it's a pleasure working with Dan.
How many people are in your cast altogether?
Oh,
roughly?
Specifically, not sure. I think we have about 10 people. About 5 or 6 are real principals. I think we had 10 or 12 altogether.
And the crew, everyone else involved?
The crew, this was a labor of love for everybody, actors included. The crew came mostly from people, men and women that we've worked with over the past 20 years. And they're like family. And they've been like family for many, many, many years. We all are looking for that opportunity to tell a story that maybe resonates more with us. We all make money telling other people's stories on other films that come in from the mainland or from Hollywood, doing work on commercials. But it's rare to actually get the opportunity to tell stories about things that we care deeply about. And so a lot of our crew, not everyone on the crew, some of them were actually people that I hadn't worked with before, but the majority of them were people that we've worked with for a very long time and are like family, and signed on to work with us for a fraction of the money that they would normally make, just a fraction. So it was really a commitment on everyone involved. Again, actors, crew, the producers, and myself. I mean, we're not in it for the money, really, because we didn't have much, and we couldn't shoo them away. I mean, they just wanted to be there.
Now, okay, why do we do that? Is it because the story is important to tell?
Well, it is. I don't think that's the only thing, though. I think that the story is important to tell, and let's not forget that. If you ask middle school students who haven't read the book, tell me about Pearl Harbor, what was that all about? I don't think that many could. I think that, like everything else in history, unless you are teaching it and talking about it, it's forgotten. And we don't want to forget what happened at the bombing of Pearl Harbor, what happened to the people here in Hawaii, and the bias and the terrible things that happened, not just to people who are affected by the actual warfare, but what happened to families and people in the aftermath. And so those are things that we never want to forget. So is the story important? Absolutely. But there's something about having the ownership that it's very much a Hawaii story. And as artists, everyone on the set is an artist in some way. And I think we all have that need and want and desire to tell stories that resonate with us.
Cool. Good answer. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. I'm Donna Blanchard. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Digital Series. We're talking with filmmaker Tim Savage, and we'll be right back.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series. I am Donna Blanchard, talking with filmmaker Tim Savage, and we have some tweets to answer.
This is exciting.
These are my first live tweets to answer on the show, and that's Think Tech Hi, if you would like to ask us some questions. We've got quite a few here. Let's. I don't want to ask the ameliorate question that was for the last show. What's the secret to making a popular movie these days? Wow.
That's a great question.
Well, if there was a easy answer to that, everybody would be doing it.
Right? I mean, look at Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood's a perfect example. I mean, it's an entire industry that's wrapped around filmmaking, and even they get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? That's why, unfortunately, we don't see a lot of great original work. We see a lot of sequels, 2s, 3s, 4s, that's such a great question, because if there was an answer to it, I think Hollywood would have figured it out by now if there was some sort of formula that worked. But we just know that sometimes movies that you think are going to take off fail miserably, and some that you think are going to go nowhere take off and
they light
they're
up.
They're the Academy Award winner or the blockbuster. So yeah, that's a good question, because there's no real answer.
What are some of your favorite films? That's just me.
Off the top of my head, Amélie, probably one of my top French films. Wonderful. Gladiator. I like a lot of. I know.
You're a little bipolar.
Yeah, it's sort of two extremes. I just saw Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Really love that.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Saving Mr. Banks. I enjoyed that. That's new. Other films in historically, Blade Runner. Those are some of my favorite.
Interesting.
Very diverse.
Very diverse fellow. Does Tim have a website where we can learn more about the book and the story?
If there are some resources. I don't have a personal website, but we have a Facebook page. They can go to facebook.com and search for Under the Blood Red Sun, and there's a lot of information on our Facebook page about a lot of different facets of production and the book. Graham Salsbury has a website, and Under the Blood Red Sun is definitely covered in a lot of the material on his website. So there's some resources out there.
Okay. Will the film be very violent, or will it be okay for young children to watch?
We are planning on a G rating. At the very most, it would be PG, but it's a family-friendly book, and we really want to stay true to that. So the violence will be very minimal. There'll be some implied dread, and I wouldn't say frightening, but Tomi definitely encounters things that are challenging and tough, but it's meant to be a family film, and we're committed to that. I actually, one of the big blunders that I did in pre-production was there's a part in the book where he's called on to do, he has to kill the family pigeons. They keep pigeons.
Oh,
and
that scene.
It's
Oh.
very, it's very heartrending.
It
and,
is.
And I was, in prepping for that scene, I just felt like I needed something more to be able to tell this story. So I tracked down an old friend who is a very amazing props master, and he makes these props, and so he made something that we could actually, take a dummy pigeon and run a knife across, and we would see blood, and we went to kind of great effort and expense to have these made and shipped to us, and we started shooting, and we said, we'll never be able to see any of this because this isn't what our story's about.
Right.
This isn't what we want our audience to
It's
see.
about the boy doing it.
So there are a lot of
Right.
other ways to tell that story, and so we did that. But that was one of my big mistakes, my big blunders in that. So yeah, the short answer to that is it'd be very family friendly, probably a G rating.
That was difficult to read in the book, and when I was reading the screenplay, I'm like, oh God, here it comes.
Yeah.
Here it comes. That's one of those moments that, even our most beloved Disney films we grew up with all have that moment in there.
Sure, yeah, and it's important for Tommy to have to face that. And again, the thing about it is that comes right out of real life experience here. That wasn't just fabricated. That actually did happen here in Hawaii. That people did have to destroy animals because there was a fear that the pigeons were taking messages out to submarines, Japanese submarines, and that was how they were communicating. So,
Well, and it's a nice segue into the next question, which is how much of this film is a documentary?
well, I wouldn't call any of it a documentary. It's a fully dramatic piece of work. It is historical fiction, so the book and the screenplay are all based on real events that Graham Salsbury sat with people and interviewed and did his research, and so everything is historically accurate, but it's not told in a documentary way. It's told completely through actors and dramatic scenes and like a real movie.
Okay. But a lot of fact went into it.
Yeah, a lot of fact.
I think that's what the tweeter
Yes,
meant to say.
it's based on fact. Yeah.
Okay. So let's back up here, Tim. Let's talk about you. Did you, like in high school, did you say, I want to be a filmmaker?
No,
Younger than
you
that?
know, I can trace my filmmaking career back to me failing a chemistry midterm. I was at college, and like everyone else, I had no idea what I was going to do except what everyone else was going to do, which was be a doctor or a lawyer. And I was in first semester chemistry with all of the other freshmen, and I failed my midterm miserably, and it occurred to me then that I'm probably not going to be a doctor, so I might want to find something else to do. And so, yeah, I trace it all back to that. And then I kind of had to ask myself, well, what did I enjoy? I wasn't sure what to do, but what did I enjoy? And I guess like most kids my age, I enjoyed movies and TV. And so I decided at least to just try it out, take a class. Well, I ended up loving the class, and then eventually, came home to my parents and let them know that I was going to be a filmmaker. And my mother, my mother is from Japan and born and raised in Kyoto. Kyoto happens to be like the Hollywood of Japan, where all of the films were shot and TV series. And so she was surrounded by people who used to work in the industry and didn't want anything to do with it, didn't want her family, and certainly didn't want her firstborn son to have anything to do with filmmaking, because she just saw the ups and the downs that her friends and their families went through, which is our business. That's the way things unfortunately happen. They come in it's either flood or famine.
I think that's feast or famine.
Feast or famine.
Sorry, I don't mean to correct you.
No, you're right. Feast or famine.
Flood or...
A flood of work.
There you
Yeah.
go. So, and then what? You went to school here. Where'd you grad? That
I went to
everyone-
Stanford University
Oh, okay.
and got my degree in film and broadcast communications. And then it was the like, oh my goodness, well, what am I going to do with that degree? And I made a phone call that really set things into place. And I happened to talk to the right person who knew of an internship that I could take, and that really launched me.
Oh, okay. We're going to talk about that when we come back from break. We're going to take a quick break. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series, coming to you from Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. I'm Donna Blanchard, talking with Tim Savage, and we'll be right back.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Hi, we're back. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series. I'm Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhui Theater, and I'm talking with filmmaker Tim Savage. And we're going to go right back to, okay, so you go to Stanford, you get your degree in broadcast communications.
Broadcast communications.
And you make an important phone call to whom? How did that happen?
Then the whole problem of, what am I going to do with that degree? And so I was there up in Northern California, and I was the one smart thing I had done was I brought a telephone book, a Hawaii telephone book, up to school with me. And I started going through the yellow pages, finding out who did any kind of production, film production, video production, anything having to do with that. And one of the phone calls led to a very dear friend now. Her name is Cheryl Gallagher. She was the managing producer at Hawaii Production Company. And she took my phone call, and I said, I'm coming home between my junior and senior year. I'm looking for any kind of internship. I'd be willing to work for free. And she said, I don't have anything, but I think some friends of mine at an advertising agency might. Anyway, that phone call, that contact, her graciousness in just helping me get to the next level, put me in touch with an ad agency that said they were willing to take on an intern. The internship was, it's the best possible education, right? You're out there actually doing and working with people who do it, and I learned so much and made all my contacts during that summer, and I came back and I came back to a job because of that one phone call, and it turns out that many years later I got to see Cheryl Gallagher, the person who took the phone call, in a social situation, and we had just a lot in common. We saw each other at church, and I mean, how special is that, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't believe in luck. In other things, but that was really special to reconnect with her on those terms because I'd kind of come full circle.
Well, yeah, and for her to have helped you.
Yes.
And for you to have taken the initiative. It's a tough business. It's acting in the world of film as well as theater is a tough business to be in, but it's doable.
Right.
Right. There's a certain amount of tenacity and talent required, but I think that if you have that passion, it's just a matter of finding the right seat on the bus.
Yeah.
So your seat on the bus includes a lot of big picture, commitment to story, big picture, but a lot of minutia at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they say that film is really in the details, and so in my role, I have to really be very attentive to both the big picture, because ultimately the director's job is to make sure that the story is being told. Now, there are hundreds, thousands of ways to tell the story, and the details are really important, but ultimately I have to be making sure that the big picture is being told. Because in the case of Under the Blood Red Sun, you know, we took a 144-page script, but we were shooting wildly out of sequence. And that's just how every movie's made. I mean, you shoot out of sequence because you have to film in a way that's most efficient. That's the bottom line, is efficiency. And so I was one of a very few people who it was incumbent upon to watch the fact that, okay, here we are on day 5 of our shoot, and we're starting off in the morning, but this actually happens at the very end of the movie or the very beginning of the movie, and your character needs to be feeling this way, and you haven't yet gone through A, B, or C, or maybe you have, and so it's making sure that everyone's aligned to the right place. So that's very big picture. Mm-hmm. But I also care dearly about, well, what's the prop that you have, and what's the camera seeing, and what focal length are you on, and how's the lighting look, and do I like the way your hair looks, or do I like that sweater that you're wearing? I mean, it all matters, you know, and I mean, the wonderful thing about filmmaking, and especially for me as a director, is it all matters to me, and I get to kind of have my 2 cents in all of it. So yeah, that's the fun part.
So what do you like at home?
Oh, I'm actually really quiet. My wife, who is a producer, really runs the house, and I'm much more quiet at home, and I'm kind of just content. I think I'm a little more content. I don't think I'm the ogre that I am on the film set. I'm not that picky at home, I guess.
Yeah, I seriously doubt that you're an ogre. I seriously doubt that. But yeah, I've done a little bit of film work, and it is you shoot the same moment over and over again. You can really get into it much more deeply than in a very different way than you can on stage. But at the same time, when you come into it, it does take that. It takes that director to give you that. Here's where you fit into the big picture. This is what we need to see in this moment. This is everything that's happening, and then worry about the continuity.
Right. Yeah, I think if there's anyone out there wondering, you know, what does it take to be a good director? One thing that I did really early on in my career that helped me a great deal was I took an acting workshop. Not being an actor, but I thought it was important to feel what it was like on the other side, and that helped me so much. Again, not that I was going to try to go get work as an actor, but just to put myself in their shoes and to understand what process they were going through, so as a director I'd be able to speak into that. And that would be something I would really recommend for anyone out there who was an aspiring director. Is put yourself in the shoes of an actor. Either get a gig being an actor, or audition for something, or take a workshop. There's sort of no pressure there, because you're there for your own good. Really, really, really helpful. Just help me connect with my actors, and I felt like I knew what they needed from me, because ultimately they want to do something that's pleasing to the group, the client, the director, whoever is in charge. They want to please them, and so the director needs to give them that ability. Tell them what they need to do, tell them how they should act. But don't tell them so much that you limit what they can bring. I think that's where the artistry is, that I never try to give an actor a line reading. I don't want you to say it the way necessarily I would say it. Here's what I want you to communicate when you say that, because you're much better at it than I am. That's why we hired you as the actor. You're probably going to bring something way better than I would have thought, but I just need to lead you to the place where you can do that.
Awesome. I bet you are a good director to work with. And that having that perspective, that's something that we're working on at Kumukuhua Theater with playwrights also, to get them involved in other facets of theater, just so they can recognize what is even doable, what's reasonable, and then you can push the boundaries. But you have to learn where the boundaries kind of are
That's right,
first. Yeah. So it wasn't it couldn't have been when you failed your chemistry test that you knew you wanted to have that amount of responsibility. So you started working for an advertising agency, you were interning, you came back and you had a job in film then?
I worked at KHON. I got a job as a production coordinator at the TV station, and that was a learning period. That wasn't one that it was just hard work. I had to do my job. I had to show up every day. But out of that came a lot of opportunities for me to work with production people and see what I liked about production, what I didn't like about production, what I would change if I were to do it myself. I got a lot of great opportunities to work on some great TV shows, which are very different than films, but again, kind of anything you can do to expand your repertoire, especially here in Hawaii, because you're not going to, I wouldn't make it just as a film director here in Hawaii doing independent movies. There's not enough money in that, really. So I need to be able to do live television, commercials, all kinds of different things. And that was a great opportunity for me to learn a lot.
So you do, and I'm sorry, we're in the last moments here. We're going to have to wrap it up. Let me look and see if I've got no new tweets. Okay, that's good. The commercial work that you do, you augment, supplement along with that work. What commercials have we seen
recently, Bank of Hawaii. I've done the majority of the bank spots for about the last 12 years. And because I have a full-time job at New Hope, Oahu, I'm very selective. So that's the work that I've done that you would probably recognize in the last 10 years.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, now I'll be interested to see the film when it's slated to come out, be released.
August 2014.
I'm looking forward to that, and then I'm going to compare and contrast with the artistry that I see in the commercials. So I know I'm going to see your eye for detail in there. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed the impetus to read both the novel and the screenplay. They're excellent. So look for Facebook. You want to go to Under the Blood Red Sun, and then Graham Salsbury has his own webpage. Take a look at that. Okay, we're out of time. We have to wrap up. I'm Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series. And our thanks to Tim Savage and to you for checking us out. Thanks also to our production manager, Ian Davidson, who is in my ear, our communications director, Chrissy Goffigan, and to Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. To check out any of our previous broadcasts, you can go on YouTube, go to thinktechhawaii.com. Check us out on Facebook, like us on Facebook. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.